Hello everyone, welcome to Helix Plays Games. My name is Richie, and joining me this week is that CyberChris 2077, Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone.
And of course, our chaotic neutral, Mr. Rob.
Hello.
Yeah, for the first time since May, all three of us have managed to get together to record a podcast. But
we did it, ladies and gentlemen.
It does happen. We promised we'd be all back, and we are. Because we've got a great show lined up for you this week where we'll be talking about Xbox's FTC case, then Xbox being back in talks with the CMA, and Major Nelson, after a distinguished career, leaves Xbox. All that and much, much more on this week's XPASS. But before we get into it, make sure if you haven't already, you like the video, subscribe to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications turned on, so you're kept in the loop with all our great here at Helix Plays Games, such as our other podcasts, Talking the PS, where every single Tuesday we break down all the news happening in the PlayStation side of gaming. We have our Lunar Listening. When there's enough Lunar news to actually produce a podcast, we will bring you a podcast dedicated to what's happening in the purple clouds. And we also have our weekly live streams where last week, Chris, me and you, we jumped into GTA 5.
We did. We went back to Los Santos, kicked some ass, and found out that the airport has no planes.
You found out the airport had no planes. I was fine.
No, the commercial airport.
Oh, yes, that is true. We tried to steal a plane from the commercial airport so we could fly into the military base to steal a military plane, outthinking them. And there was no planes.
No planes.
Yeah, none we could enter anyway. There was lots of them just lying around.
You got to buy the shark cards. That's what you got to do. So you can buy your own plane. That's how they get you.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be doing that. But gentlemen, been playing anything interesting? We'll start with you, Chris.
As you mentioned, GTA, I played it via Xbox Cloud Gaming through my desktop browser, as per usual, and very impressed with it, actually. I think, aside from a couple of refresh scan lines, which is kind of common practice, thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was nice to go back to a game I've not played in probably nearly 10 years. Thoroughly enjoyed it when it came back out on the PS3 while I was just out of college. But going back to it so long after, you realise how fun that game is and why it is as popular as it is. Had a blast with that one. Still playing through Hi-Fi Rush. Got another stage out the way. I think I'm up to maybe the second boss from the end now, I want to say. Thoroughly enjoying that one. And I also dabbled in Exoprimal. Just dropped on Gamepass this week. So I'm guessing I'll save my first impressions for the segment of the news. But a couple of varied things. Dabbling around a little bit amongst what else I'm playing. And a couple of things for me.
Rob?
So I also dropped into GTA, but I dropped into the story mode because I just forgot how good that actually the story mode is, and it's kind of criminal we never got any DLC or kind of additional content out of it because of the success of GTA Online. And I'm really enjoying it. And the weird thing is, we talked about this on Talking the PS, where Richie dropped the line kind of, I didn't have a PS3 when it came out, and I was like, he's got the console wrong. And then you said, then I was like, no wait, it was the PS3. That timeline just doesn't make sense in my head, how old that game is, and it's still I think it's still pretty high up the sellers list as well.
GTA Online was broke when it launched as well.
Yeah. GTA 5 still charts to this day. I don't know if it's perpetually in the charts anymore, but it's usually in and around. Which is insane.
Weirdness is that. But I really enjoyed it, and there's a weird combination where I love from the storyline. I don't know if it's the kind of LA setting, it's the kind of really what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of extreme capitalism kind of influencer thing they've got going on. There's just something really endearing about that world they created, and it doesn't age.
I was saying when we were playing through it, it was obviously it's full of jokes and comedy, and even going back to the original ones, and just driving around and reading the billboards again, hearing the radio on the background. It was I forgot how rich this world was in how detailed. What was the? Oh, that what? Yeah. I was saying when I was driving on the airport, there was a billboard for watches, and it was just a picture of a wrist with a watch, and it said it's time to strap on. And it was like, that's just GTA comedy through and through.
That's good, though.
It is. It works. And
if I had a watch company, I would just play with puns like that all the time. Just like be a bit cheeky with it.
Yeah, and it works. And again, I can't believe it's been so long until like Red Dead Redemption 2, phenomenal game, but to think it's been nearly like a third of our lives since we got another like a new entry in this franchise that makes so much money. How can they not get out another game? But then again, I guess they don't need to, because we went back and played it again. So like we're that returning audience, albeit for one night. It's Grand Theft Auto, man. Rockstar just do what they want, don't they? Although I do feel for 6, it's going to be quite difficult to do that like satirical take on the United States when after the last decade when we've had the likes of Donald Trump and shit, it's almost too real. The Capitol building being stormed. That sounds like a mission that would happen in GTA. Get in the Capitol building, get the flag. And that happened in real life. So where do you go with the comedy?
Over the last 5-10 years, I've felt sorry for the satirists, because like when you look at the window, we wouldn't have even considered writing that as a satirical joke, but that just happened.
It does sound like a heist kind of plot point, doesn't it? It's like, we create a distraction of idiots who will do this, but then we'll rob the gold in this section of like the Capitol building or something.
Then get a military jet and get out of there.
What would you do if there was like just literally? It feels more like Saints Row than GTA, to be honest. Where you go, you know what? There's a mission where you have to like incite a riot at the Capitol building so you can steal an election.
Quite possibly, but GTA 6. On the horizon, but in the meantime,
they're no rush. They're no rush to get that game out, which is fine.
GTA Online keeps printing money, right?
Yeah, I think GTA might have come out the right time for me, because I think with Zelda, I just need to push to the end now, close out the story and go, right, I'm done. I definitely haven't done everything that game has to offer, nowhere near it, and I've probably tipped over 100 hours.
Oh,
it's a huge game. Because it's got that kind of sandboxy element to it. You can just find yourself messing around, building like a new car. You spend 10 minutes building a new car, where it would have literally been quicker to walk to your destination. So it's just that kind of thing where you do get distracted a lot. So I think I need to just stop getting distracted and just right now let's mainline the story, close that out, and then I'll probably go back and do basically the same with Final Fantasy VII, which I think about 2/3 the way through. So then, but GTA might have come at nice time for me, because I'm now quite skint since my holiday. But since I've got back from holiday, I've just had pretty much constant social engagements going on. Like,
damn.
2 kids' birthdays. Like there was some events, something happening around town. Pretty much the day I landed back in the country. I've just had a work social, like this weekend, yesterday as of recording, which I'm a little bit hungover right now. So it's just been like that constant stream of stuff. Like I'm back the gym. That's also taking a bit of time out. So I haven't played much. So I do need to let's close out these games. GTA 5 might be a nice game to see me through till I've got a bit of money back in the bank. And then I can look at either Final Fantasy 16 or Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, I'm dragged into the world of Exoprimal yet.
No, I'm unlikely, because it's a multiplayer game, to be dedicate much time to that. But I'm looking forward to having a go. But I think that's enough of that. Chris, would you like to introduce us to the
excellently examined and excavated Xbox expose, aka the news?
The news. And as always, our news section is brought to you by our Helix Heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p over on the YouTube channel. Gives you early access to shows such as Lunar Listening, such as Talking to PS, and custom emojis to use in the chat. And thank you very much to all our heroes for continuing to support the channel. First story of the week. Xbox has won in the case against the FTC.
That's not a sarcastic clap, but because it's just one audio feed, it probably sounds sarcastic. It's over, kind of, maybe, probably not. But it feels like we've got past a massive hurdle. What's going on with the FTC case? Richie specifically, what's going on with the FTC case? You're on mute.
I'll read through the Judge Corley's verdict, and then we'll talk about it. We'll go in depth. So Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. I mean, it is by numbers. It deserves scrutiny. Fair enough. Now, I don't think anyone was kind of in that kind of, oh, this shouldn't be looked at. That scrutiny has paid off. Microsoft has committed in writing, in public, and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years on parity with Xbox. I think that's a key phrase there. It made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch, and it entered several agreements to, for the first time, bring Activision's content to several cloud gaming services. This court's responsibility in this case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending the resolution of the FTC administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has shown a likelihood that it has not shown a likelihood that it will prevail on its claim that this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for preliminary injunction is therefore denied.
Whilst hungover, how tough was it to read through that, Richard?
That was quite difficult, when especially got in the more technical parts of the language. It's like, oh God.
This is someone's full-time job to do this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
my biggest takeaway is notwithstanding one word. Because in this cut, it is one word. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's learned something new today. Yeah. Notwithstanding.
I mean, the Cliff Notes is that Microsoft has done enough to demonstrate to the court that their intentions, albeit only for 10 years, are kind of enough to bring it to not create like a disjointed kind of competition within the industry. I think that's fair, right?
I mean, for me, there's two elements to this. One, they're keeping parity with PlayStation for 10 years, which is a substantial amount of time, and that doesn't seem to be. Sony's not even like hard against that 10 year. They haven't turned around and gone, no, you need to give us 15 or 20 years. And then they're bringing it to Nintendo platforms. They do say Switch, but I would assume that
good luck with that in 10 years.
It feels like this will be Nintendo platforms potentially beyond Switch, and bringing it to new emerging services shows that Microsoft's actually making it more accessible.
Yeah.
Google Stadia.
Yeah, so it's literally the opposite of what the FTC argued.
Yeah, that's it.
It's actually making it more accessible as opposed to like not accessible at all. So, and
within like the scope of the court case is very much, well, the scope was about consumer access, about anti-compete stuff, and it's like, no, you're making it easier for your competitors to compete against you by purchasing this. So yeah, this seems to be like, I think this is the outcome we all expected, to be honest.
It's mad how much of this court case boiled down to just talking about Call of Duty. Like, all of the lawyers and all the defence and everything was so focused on just Call of Duty. And yet, we've said time and time again, I think this is a win for Microsoft on the front of the other IP, the studio acquisitions, and King. Like, that's just like, I think Microsoft were probably more interested in King.
Yeah.
Because they've wanted their mobile division, but I think there's been that much laser focused on COD that they've almost like got away with probably the more important part of the deal without it even being brought up.
Well, I think the King thing, it's not changing any sort of like competitive stuff. So the mobile gaming is pretty much seen as a separate industry to console gaming, and people interact with it differently. Microsoft, I can't see them changing anything regarding King at all.
Well, they don't need to, do they? It's just
just
predatory by nature already, so they don't need to
King
do
games
anything.
are still going to be on Android. They're still going to be on iOS. They're not going to change anything. You might see them come to Windows. That's not really causing like reducing competition there. It just means that instead of the money going into ABK's pockets, it's going into Microsoft's in terms of consumer access. And likewise, I don't think they're going to rock the boat too much with Blizzard. I think there'll be some structural changes behind the scenes, but their IP, I think they're just going to keep everywhere they currently is. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's not the end yet.
It's not the end. There is still... I mean, this this verdict has actually triggers us into the next story, so we might as well just throw this back in. The FTC is fighting back, which is okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure what they're fighting back about here.
It's the decision to appeal, isn't it? It's the problem that happens in a lot of like court cases when, even though you win, they have like a window in which they can appeal the court and say like the verdict wasn't fair, there was certain evidence wasn't factual properly, or they can call up people's like legitimacy in the trial, and basically they drag the shit out. They drag it out longer and longer and longer. Just whether it's just to be complicated. I think the biggest thing for the FTC and their problem is they're using taxpayers' money. So the longer they drag this out, it costs them more money. I think we said if this decision didn't go through on Microsoft's behalf, the FTC would have had to pay Microsoft $3.3 million in like court fees or damage fees or
wasn't
acquisition.
I thought it was B.
It feels more like B.
Billion. Oh yeah, it probably was billion. In just like detrimental loss and other things. Microsoft's statement from Brad Smith, who's the vice chairman, did say, "We're grateful to this court in San Francisco for this quick and thorough decision and hope other jurisdictions, a la the CMA, will continue to work towards a timely solution. As we've demonstrated consistently through this process, we are committed to working creatively and collaboratively to address regulatory concerns." Followed up by Bobby Kotick, the arsehole in charge of Activision Blizzard, who did say, "It will enable competition rather than allow entrenched market leaders to continue to dominate our rapidly growing industry," which is a bit ironic from the guy who's been sat at the top for the last 10 years.
Yeah, he is one of the entrenched market leaders.
He is that person, exactly. So all things said and done, though, they've got the green light. Everyone seems grateful that it's finally going through. In the end, I don't think, again, PlayStation, Jim Ryan, were overly that fussed on it going through. A lot of the leaked documents we discussed over multiple weeks now have shown they weren't that bothered. They just wanted to delay it to give them as much time to get something, I guess, in a decade's time to compete with Call of Duty. Like 10 years, my guess is 10 iterations of Call of Duty. Microsoft still have a lot of stuff to sort out. Do you keep Bobby Kotick? How many staff gets consolidated? There was more Xbox layoffs this past week as well at Microsoft. So it's a lot of things to juggle, and I don't think we'll really see the fruits of this deal going through for many years to come yet.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the
one of
crazy
the things,
thing.
one of the things
Isn't
I
it
was
really?
kind of thinking about over this last week, after this was announced, is like, if you were like Phil Spencer, how would you restructure Activision Blizzard King to work it into Microsoft, or would you not bother at all? Would you just leave it as is?
I think the risk, if you don't, is we get another Redfall. I think they learned from that and the hands-off approach to ZeniMax and Bethesda that you have to be in the game production pipeline. They've got a great track record of Call of Duty and some of their other titles, like Diablo more recently, Crash Bandicoot games. But at the same time, if there's a flop or there's something like, what if the first Call of Duty under Microsoft banner comes out and is bang average? Then everyone suddenly goes, Microsoft shouldn't have bought them. It's too much for them to handle. They've already got 20 studios. Now they've got another 6 or 7. It's grown too big to control. And that's when cuts happen, studio closures happen. We've seen it happen before with both Microsoft and PlayStation. It went down and then it builds back up. And I think a lot of the Activision team will just be happy to get rid of Bobby Kotick and the work cultures and the environment, and hopefully Microsoft's HR department are going to be very, very busy for the next couple of years as they iron out all those creases. But you've got to merge. I think we said a couple of weeks ago, Rob, that there'll be repeat jobs where people do multiple things that'll have to go, and that is the reality of any kind of merger. But I just want to see this green lit so we get Call of Duty on Game Pass and we can just like play without buying them, I guess, along with all the other titles.
I mean, the very sad thing is, like, this is like step one of probably about 100 till actually anything manifests for gamers. And this step one has taken a painful amount of time and money. Like, I'm not kind of expecting to see big movements for a long, long time, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think the earliest thing we'll see of difference will be Activision titles going, like older titles, nothing new, but like the back catalogue. I think we saw that with the Bethesda deal, as almost like a few months after that was signed and delivered, all the Fallout games, all the Skyrim and stuff, they all went onto Game Pass like in just one fell swoop. I think that'll be the first thing, but I don't think we'll see anything new for quite some time yet.
Yeah, I think they'll be careful of handling Call of Duty, pushing that to Game Pass, because they have, although PlayStation haven't, to my knowledge at this time of recording, haven't accepted the 10-year deal, which I believe is still on the table for them. Microsoft have legally committed to parity. Yeah. So they would have to, if they put Call of Duty on Game Pass, they would have to at least be willing for Sony to put it on PlayStation Plus.
And this is where we get in that odd argument where
So
they've promised parity, but
Yeah.
if Sony don't send them the PS5, PS6 dev kits, they won't be on parity because they won't have the ability to do that. And then you're going to get into all these legal things where Sony sue Microsoft and say they promised parity, and then they counter sue them and say you didn't give us the damn dev kits. And that's a story for 5-6 years down the line. But it is going to happen off the back of these million-page documents and legal proceedings. It's crazy.
I mean, the thing I was thinking about was Activision Blizzard King. When you look at it, feel like three different companies just slammed together. So if I was to kind of restructure it, I'd almost split them back into separate things, Activision, Blizzard and King. Let King do its own thing. Blizzard is more PC focused, with largely still porting to console later, less so than it used to be, but Blizzard's entire catalogue of like things like Diablo, Warcraft, Starcraft and Overwatch all very much feel like PC focused games. So just let Blizzard continue with their IP. So it's the Activision bit that makes me think, it's like, I feel a bit sorry for the developers who want to work on a Crash or Spyro because they're not going to do anywhere near the sort of numbers of Call of Duty. So when it comes to shareholders, the shareholders aren't interested in them at all. They only focus on Call of Duty, which is why I think it's led to Activision being so focused on Call of Duty. So what I was thinking about is like, what I would probably do is go, okay, Activision, you are only going to be focused on Call of Duty. We're going to take your other IP into Xbox Studios and we'll find new homes for it all in place. Imagine something like a Double Fine working on a Crash game. You could do stuff like that, like, and then Activision focuses on Call of Duty. Blizzard focuses on its 4 main IP. King is just a mobile game money spinner, and then things like Spyro and Crash and Tony Hawk's are finally out of the shadow of Call of Duty.
They're definitely going to need a master plan, and I think Phil Spencer's got to sit down with his wider team, no longer Larry Herb, and basically plot out what this looks like. I think there'll be a lot of moves. There'll be, as you said, a lot of internal change because, if you've worked in Call of Duty for the last 10 years, you might want to go do something different. So, but with a lot of these purchases and acquisitions, there's also a lot of retainership. When I think we saw it when Sony acquired Bungie, a lot of the staff got the promise of if you stay on for 5 years, you got like bonus payouts and stuff, because the big risk is you merge together and everyone goes, not really where I wanted to work, not really what I wanted to do, I'm going to go look elsewhere and take my talent. Is you don't want to buy someone and then find everyone floods out the door because they're not happy with it. So there's that risk if you want to retain the staff and the IP that you've acquired rather than it just all fall apart.
It feels like though the opposite would be true of Activision Blizzard Kings. Like,
I think so, because it's such a bad place at the moment.
I think it's in Microsoft's best interest to get rid of the kind of senior management structures there, but they might not be able to. They might have to. They might have the clauses in the merger where there's a 10-year commitment to like a Bobby Kotick.
Yeah, well,
but
that's it.
You can maybe phase him out of an active role and just give him like a board position, whereas like he turns up to the quarterly board meeting and that's pretty much his involvement. But then you move things like HR, where it really depends on the clauses internally. But Microsoft will be very aware of the nature of that company, how it was run, compared to how Microsoft is kind of getting praise in like them sort of fields with. So they'll be like, I'm sure they'll have a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. If I was Sony right now, deal's gone through, oh no, Jim Ryan, I would put a massive investment into Bungie and giving people the opportunity to leave Activision. If you've been working on Call of Duty for years, if you were at Sony and Bungie, I'd be like, right, we need an IP to compete with Call of Duty. You've got the experience. Come over, join this new studio spin-off or a portion of Bungie or whatever it may be.
Announce Destiny 3.
Not even that. I just think if you, like I said, if you're not happy with all the moves and shakeups, like use this as an opportunity of disruption and headhunt some of the best people who work at Call of Duty, whether that be Treyarch or otherwise, and just go, come over to us, make your own Call of Duty IP, but do it in your own vision. You're not beholden to Call of Duty anymore, but you're an expert in first-person shooters. Here's the money, here's the budget, let's go.
There's the potential now that when the score finally actually gets over the line properly, that could happen internally at Microsoft, because then when you're part of like a multi-studio network, which there will be, it'd be easier to move internally to someone like a Bethesda.
Absolutely. But then if you're at Bethesda, you're beholden to Fallout has to be your next game.
Yeah, but if
Which
you've been
is
working
like-
on Call of Duty for 10 years and you want to change things up, Fallout might actually be a good title for you because you've got that first-person shooter experience, but you're now applying it in a very different IP. So that could actually be a nice home, actually, to give that halfway between. You're not going to go from Call of Duty to just a platformer. So a completely changing IP, but you are bringing what you know, so you might be able to settle in quite quickly somewhere like that. It'd be interesting.
It will. Although in the UK, we might not get to do any of this because our government's just as bad as the rest of the world.
Well, this is goes into the news where the UK CMA will now review the decision and the overall case. So they've extended the deadline till August, which was previously the 18th of July, so that would have been tomorrow. So now, basically, Microsoft, because of the FTC decision, Microsoft are now going to go back to the UK CMA and have a chat.
Have a chat over a cup of tea and a biscuit.
It's going to be like, look what Dad's doing.
I
Do you
would
wanna think
expect
again?
tea and biscuits to be at these chats if it's in person.
Oh, absolutely. So the CMA usually traditionally don't go back on the rules, but as you said, Rob, the dad's already decided. It is that thing where USA, biggest economic power, one of them on the planet, they've decided it's okay. The EU, they're cool with it, as are a bunch of other countries. And we were talking pre-show just about, at the end of the day, this starts to become detrimental to UK consumers more than it would.
Yeah.
The whole point of their CMA was, it's cloud gaming, it's bad for cloud gaming and UK consumers. UK consumers not getting access to Call of Duty on Gamepass and cloud gaming is more detrimental than the first outcome.
Yeah.
So at what
And
point does the CMA need to give themselves a good hard look at and go, right, you're just causing problems now.
Yeah, you've got it wrong. Like it's fine to get stuff wrong, but don't continue to go down the path just because you want to remain consistent.
Yeah, I think this is one where I think the concerns are, I think they are kind of valid, but I don't think it's not Microsoft's fault that they are by far the biggest party in cloud gaming at the moment. Stadia failed. Luna isn't making the waves that I think Amazon would hope it is. GeForce now seems to be doing okay. Sony and Nintendo are kind of dipping the toes in the water, but not really fully committing to it yet. Although Sony seems to be starting to make a few more moves. I'm not sure. I think it's one of them. It's like, well, cloud gaming is an industry that has huge potential, but in the short term, it's not. It's a minute drop in the ocean that is the gaming industry.
Yeah. And we are in quite a unique place. It's just as a channel who started off covering cloud gaming initially, and we've been covering it for nearly 4 years now. To actually go, no, cloud gaming works. We are big fans. We've invested 100%. Literally over thousands of pounds in cloud gaming at this point. Spent many hours doing cloud gaming. We understand it, but yeah, I think in long-term goal, the CMA held. They could be right. When Microsoft have a complete monopoly over cloud gaming in a decade plus time, and the infrastructure's finally caught up, 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, all that kind of jazz, fiber optic is there. But they might look back and be like, hell, Microsoft have a 95% capture rate on this economy. That may be well and true, and I appreciate where they're coming from. But in blocking this deal, the cloud gaming is so insignificant in terms of the grander scheme of the games industry. I think they need to bite the bullet on this one, hold their hands up and say, look, we got it wrong, crack on. Because as we said, it's UK consumers who are going to lose out when they have to pay £70 to play Call of Duty next year as opposed to Game Pass.
And I think we have to remember as well that the CMA's decision was back in April, and that was kind of, I think it was just before Microsoft started throwing these 10-year deals around it left, right and centre. So I think Microsoft giving things like Activision Blizzard King titles to GeForce Now for 10 years and to things like Boosteroid very much feels like a response to the conversations they were having with the CMA. So the CMA now might look at it and go, well, actually, you've now legally committed to stuff that you hadn't last time we were talking. And then if you're also committing to parity, as you said, as is in the FTC case with Sony, that means if Microsoft wants to put Call of Duty on xCloud, parity would be, it then goes on PlayStation Plus cloud gaming. So they have a legal commitment to do that. The commitment's outside the UK. But so I think the CMA might be a bit more malleable to this. They might just need Microsoft to sign some documents to kind of guarantee that any Activision Blizzard King title they will put on cloud gaming, they are open for other platforms to also take. That might just be what it is. And that way, xCloud isn't going to theoretically grow beyond the others because of this deal. It will definitely help, but that then it's like, well, it's on Sony mainly, I think, to kind of compete in that space, to make the decision to actively compete, where they feel like they're half in and half out at the moment.
And that's what we've said all along, right? Is that you can't begrudge Microsoft from wanting to invest and spend money in their business, because that's capitalism 101. You spend money to make money, and they know they've admitted several times throughout this court case they're in third place. So what they're trying to do is spend money to invest in assets that will help improve them and compete with their competition. That is business. And yet, for some reason, these regulatory bodies have... It's let's face it, it's down to the sheer cost, right? If it wasn't 68 point whatever billion, they probably wouldn't as be concerned. Mm-hmm. But by nature of it, they have been.
It is right. I think all these authorities are scrutinising the deal because it is such a landmark deal. It is potentially the biggest in tech, not just gaming. Mm-hmm. A deal like this does need a lot of scrutiny, and I think the cloud gaming stuff does fall a bit weak. But you have to remember, the CMA were one of the first to make a decision.
Yeah. So
there's stuff that's come out since the decision. When they relook at it and go, oh, actually, we have more information. Our concerns turns out are unfounded. Microsoft are playing ball with other companies. They're not using this to create a monopoly.
Yeah, but
that's made by
one
Ubisoft.
Of those things. Yeah, and it's interesting for the amount of money that there was. I think we said it on one of our previous shows, is that if Microsoft just took like a percentage of that money they're about to spend, they could literally have bought every single PS5 Sony produced and still not put a dent in that 68 billion. Like, they could have bought every console manufactured.
Yeah, just drop in the ocean and be like,
and just dump them all off, set them on fire, and be like, fuck your SSDs.
Theoretically, Microsoft could have probably bought Square Enix, Sega, and Ubisoft for the same sort of money, assuming they were willing to sell. And I think that would be more impactful to the gaming industry than Activision Blizzard King.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's always been the biggest outlier, because Xbox have the backing of Microsoft, like one of the, if not, like it's like the third richest company on the planet. Like, they could just come in and buy Sony if they really wanted to swing that big dick energy around as much as they want to. They could go, fuck it then, we'll just buy Sony. Forget Activision, we'll buy Sony. So then Activision's games are on both of our platforms. Throw Gamepass on PlayStation while you're at it.
It's like, you want to see a monopoly? I'll show you a fucking monopoly, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate goal of that. But then you could probably get them for... I reckon you could get Sony for like 40 billion.
I don't know, because Sony are huge, not just in gaming. That's the thing.
Depends which
are you buying PlayStation or are you buying Sony? Because they're different conversations, I think.
I don't know. I think Sony isn't like not as valuable as we think. Aside from like Spider-Man, like what movies are they crunching out? I mean, we could get into a whole different conversation.
Yeah, but I don't think Sony were. If you're buying
get us
Sony,
the market value, Rob.
You're buying
Sony Group Corporation is worth 117 billion, which
that's not that far off,
right?
Yeah. And I think when you're looking at it, like, so if you think Sony are buying things like phones, you're buying TVs, you're buying all their audio stuff, like they've got a lot of arms to Sony.
I'm not denying it. I just think they're not as valuable as they probably should be.
Actually, how low that is. I was expecting...
The problem is everything's expensive, right? The Xperia phones, like 1% of the mobile market. The headsets, as quality as they are. Their TVs, too pricey. Do any of us own a Sony Bravia TV?
Yeah.
Nope. Do you? LG, how old's yours, though?
Oh, it's like 10-year-old.
Yeah, modern Sony Bravia.
And it was a couple of generations old when I bought it. I did that thing where, because they bring out a new generation, you go back 2 or 3 years and you get a massive deal.
Yeah. Sony Vaio sold the laptop brand. It's just like they've been shrinking back. And yeah, I mean, without getting too much into it, I just think, imagine it like a couple of years, Apple swoop in and buy something. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just happy that it's not a Tencent or a NetEase coming in and buying it, and then all the funding is coming from somewhere else. But hopefully we'll see it, and we'll be doing Call of Duty First Looks, because I won't have to buy it outright. I can just play it on the channel for Game Pass.
We all just want Phil Spencer to do a cover of Without Me by Eminem, just with like all directed at the FTC as opposed to the FCC.
Yeah. We won't let him be.
We won't let him be at all. But Major Nelson is retiring after 20 years at Xbox.
I thought you were going to say we'll let Major Nelson be there, Richie. That was like the perfect segue. So I'll tell you who we will let be. Major Nelson.
I didn't. I something was there, but you know when like I hadn't quite formed it properly quick enough. But
We'll
Larry Hrybe, how do you say his last name?
Herb.
Herb. Is it Herb?
Yeah. I think that might be a typo actually.
Yes, it's in a couple of places.
Herb.
So
Herb.
yeah.
Larry Herb.
Larry Herb, the director of Xbox programming, after 20 years at the business, is stepping down to spend more time with his family.
I love how you put like such a somber tone on your voice for making that statement, like he's passed away or something.
Yeah.
To spend more time with his family.
You know what?
Yeah.
Fair play to him. He's oversaw the growth of Xbox into what it currently is. And yeah, he's been infamous. He's not infamous. That makes it sound bad. He's been quite famous around the Xbox community for a long time. He's well liked, I think, just generally in the gaming industry. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be said about him, and I think over 20 years he's done a lot for the brand in terms of just like being the face of it. A lot of times in between like leadership, like even before Phil Spencer. He always did like the blog posts, giveaways and stuff. He's been at all the face-to-face events. He did the Xbox official podcast, which is going to now go on hiatus until they kind of rearrange and come back with a new format of what they want that to look like. Yeah. But yeah, he's very much just been the voice of Microsoft and Microsoft's Xbox branch for a long time, and it's at that point where like people do move on, people do retire, and like you said, he's sacrificed a lot of his time away from his family over the years. I think he put out like a series of tweets. Stating like he's had an incredible 20 years, he's ready for the next chapter, whatever that may look like. But yeah, he is going to take some time off. He's not jumping straight into another job, and I don't think this should be a negative thing. I think it's just part of like
I think it's
life. He's earned his rest, as they say.
Do you think the timing is built around the merger? It's like now the merger is going to happen. That he can go right. I'll see this over the line, and then that will be me.
Probably not, because I don't think he had a massive part. He's the director of programming and stuff, but
yeah, so he'll be. I mean, he's a director at Xbox, so he will have been involved. Maybe not all the time, but he will have been working on this deal in some way, shape, or form. I'd imagine. And it feels like okay, this is over the line. Now is a nice time for me to step out, let the next generation of like Xbox directors like take a step up. And that's the thing you have to remember as well. Sometimes you do need people who've been in a job for a long time to step away to create the opportunity for someone else to get that promotion.
I mean, yeah, that's a big part of it. I just think he's been such an integral part of Xbox. It's just, yeah, like time to move on. I don't think he'll do anything in terms of like game development or anything, but he's got enough experience under his belt. He could just do whatever.
He might do a similar thing that Reggie Fils-Aimé is doing, where he's just doing a lot of like consultancy stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. It's the same with Jack Trenton as well. I think he's currently actually doing it for Tencent, ironically. Yeah. But yeah, well, I mean, why not? You reach that point, as you said, you need to move on so like the next generation can come through.
Indeed.
And let's face it, a lot of these people have been around for that long that, especially when they're wearing suits and ties, they just don't look like they're connected to the gamer world as much anymore. They do just look like dads and granddads and stuff who've just been around from the beginning.
Do you watch that movie with De Niro and Anne Hathaway called The Intern, where it's like he joins like an e-commerce tech company as like an old man? It kind of reminds me of like that type of vibe.
I can see that. We probably look like that to a lot of people as well, where we've like lived through it, but like that tech boom that happened in like the early 90s is we've rode that wave, but we are not like the future of like gaming essentially.
No,
we're
like the slim fitting jeans look weird.
To
the youth.
On that note, I actually, as part of my job, occasionally go into like local schools and colleges to talk about careers, like my career with the students. I started doing it when I was like 21, 22, and it's like when you're talking to a bunch of 15-year-olds, at the time I was like looking at me, go, yeah, you're a bit older, but you're not so far away. Now I'm 33. I do get the impression it's like, oh, I'm now the old man in the room.
Yeah.
Who I used to generally look around and see this like a 40-year-old CEO sat there talking about how he used to work really hard in school to them. It's like, I'm sat there listening going, they're not paying attention to you, mate. But now I'm that guy. I'm just aging to that thing, so I was like... But, Chris...
I mean, at the same time... Sorry, before we wrap up, the guy's like 65 as well.
Yeah.
It's like, just retire. Take your riches and retire. Like, just enjoy your life.
Yeah, that could be it. He might just retire and go, you know what, Xbox, if you absolutely need me, I'll come in on the consultancy occasionally just to top up the bank a little bit.
Yeah, like I'll take your eyes out on a daily rate, but aside from that, I'm done.
Yeah, that's probably how I'd do it.
Yeah,
Chris,
me too.
You've played Exoprimal.
I have. Would you like to know about it?
Yes, please. That was the intention. Chris, you played Exoprimal.
I have. Not much, albeit I've done the intro and like a mission or two with like random strangers and such online. So this was a game that released on Gamepass this past week. We've not done a live stream of it yet. However, I was curious about it. I haven't actually read any reviews at the time of playing. I just saw the game on Game Pass. Wanted to jump in, check it out. I knew it ran in the RE engine, so it was going to look like gorgeous, but much to my disappointment, it wasn't Dino Crisis. So it was a case of like, oh, is this just like whatever? Jumped in, created a character, and essentially, Richie, it is Outriders meets Dino Crisis, for lack of a better description, where you start off, you create your character, you are part of an elite squad that has these kind of hybrid tech suits, similar to the ninja guy from Metal Gear Solid, various classes, so there's like support class, tank class, assault, stealth, and basically, yeah, you drop into this world. It's got a nice, like Outriders had like a comedy tone throughout it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You drop in and you are hunting dinosaurs who've somehow taken over the world through these portals, and as crazy as that all sounds, similar to what I mentioned on Talking the PS Tomorrow, the amount of velociraptors and T-Rexes to fight and stuff. I think in the first level, in the tutorial area, you fight about 50 velociraptors, a triceratops, and then the big boss is a T-Rex, and you can't beat the T-Rex because he's too strong, and you kind of have to back out to your crew, and it's essentially, yeah, you make your own suit, you fight as a team, and it just looks like crazy fun. Looks like really fun. Had a blast with it so far. And I think it's definitely one, as a squad with friends, that's when you get the most fun. There's not much of a story, there's not much of a campaign. Visually looks fun. It's shooting dinosaurs en masse, so you don't feel guilty. And a couple of weapon upgrades, different special techniques, drop-ins. You can take over one of the dinosaurs if you want to at one point. You get rocket launches and just special unique items. You can put fictional walls up like Fortnite style in front of you to stop them getting to you. Turrets, missiles, heat seek, everything you can imagine you'd need to take down dinosaurs. This game's got it in abundance. But I think just with friends, jump in, play it, free on Game Pass. We'll have a good time.
Yeah, I'm hoping there might be some more reviews coming out soon, because I know things like IGN just haven't scored it yet, said it's a review in progress. Pure Xbox has just said they're actually not going to review it until they've had an opportunity to play on public service to see how it actually performs properly. So I think there's been some decision making like that, which is why reviews are quite scarce at the moment.
I feel like the crux of any of these games is like how well is it supported. That's going to be there, because like these type genre of games can get stale when it's like a similar format, and it's just about how rich can they make the content, how kind of varied can they make the mission structure, and it needs to be like a good 12, 18 months of support, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, ideally for Capcom, they'll be looking at this just becoming an ecosystem that lasts for a long time.
Yeah.
But looking at Metacritic, the user scores are quite low on the Series X. It's like 5.9, slightly lower than that on PlayStation and PC. However, there isn't a huge number of reviews, and I think there's a little bit of review bombing going on. When I've just been skimming through the comments, there's a couple of people giving it like zeros by saying they wanted Dino Crisis and Capcom gave them Exoprimal. So it's like, well, so take that with a pinch. So I do think the review user score is lower than it actually is, because of people just being salty about a different game entirely. So
that's the way reviews go. Yeah. It looks great though. It's definitely, again, with Game Pass, it's always worth checking out. Like that's the great thing. So
I think the reason why it's probably scoring a little bit low as I punch my microphone is on the PlayStation side and the PC side it is like a $60 title, where Game Pass it's free. So Microsoft, these people complaining about feel like it should be like a free to play game. And
this is always the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like if it's free to play, do then people just go, oh, it's another free to play like multiplayer game? Not that interested. See, I don't think there's a good solution there. I expect this will come out probably in the 7 to 8 by the time it kind of everything settles down, from what I'm seeing of the reviews. I'm looking forward to it. I think we should stream it this week. Give it a fair shot. See how we like it, because it could be a really fun game in there.
With friends, I think that's when you'll have the most crazy level of fun. Of like, Rob, there's a T-Rex just behind you. You turn around, and there's like 50 raptors get dropped into a portal, and we're all just similar to the chaos. I guess you're enjoying with the Starship Troopers thing, Rob. Just swap out the bugs for dinosaurs. It is that thing where you're being swarmed all over. Your team's dropping grenades, shield screens, walls. Everyone's got like a different mech suit. So you've got like healers and stuff amongst you as well, and I just think in the chaos, there's a lot of like arcade fun to be had. Very similar to, as I said, Outriders.
It also definitely comes down to community as well. So one of the reasons I like Starship Troopers so much is the community around it. There's no one toxic in there. Everyone's, for lack of a better word, like a bit dumb. So like there's like scenes like one of the things where you have to like run back to the dropship to escape, and you're getting chased by bugs. If someone like gets downed and like they're bleeding out, there's always like this like theatre of Vogue going, no, medic, and then like running to get him and stuff like that. So if that can, like, if Exoprimal can capture some of that, that's what I want from that game. I don't want seriousness. I don't want even good graphics or anything like that. I just want good community.
Yeah, and you know what? Capcom have been smashing it as well with like the RE remakes and then the Monster Hunter games. Like they are on to just like a gold streak at the moment, and this might just be another edition that might catch a lot of people out. Like Monster Hunter caught me out, like how big and popular that was. You never know. Never know.
Yeah, and this is, I don't think, has anyone ever looked at Exoprimal from what we saw in like trailers and so forth? This is going to be a 10 out of 10. I think if this lands in like high 7s, low 8s, go, okay, there you go. That's what the game is. That's what it feels like it should be. It feels like that's where it was being pitched. So if it comes out, go, yeah, it's not the most fantastic in terms of the technical aspects of it, but there's a really fun game there and a nice community forms around it. Yeah, I think there could be a win here. But I think
if you like dinosaur games, you might get a Dino Crisis if you buy this.
Indeed. And if you have played it, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It'd be interesting to see how, again, with not many reviews out there, there's only limited what we can say. But Chris and Rob, we can talk about Game Pass, because the Friends and Family Pass is about to close. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, they started about a year ago with the like public testing it in certain territories, not in the UK, so we've not had any hands-on time with it. But it's been kind of rumoured for a while that, you could sign up like your kids or your friends or something. Basically, all just agree to pay a slightly higher fee, but more people get access to friends and family. The beta period seems to be ending for that, but at the same time, Microsoft, in their reply out to customers who've been trialling the program, basically thank them for their participation. They give them 3 months free Game Pass to use as like a thank you for taking part.
That's nice.
They're going to learn from the last several months and investigate building an offer which can launch worldwide in the future. It does make me think maybe it's not worked as well Microsoft had hoped. It doesn't seem as like a ringing endorsement of like, we're going to go live with this soon.
I think it might be we're not going to go live with it exactly as is soon. I think you might see a higher price point on it.
Because the reality is, as much as Family Plan is great, just like Spotify and they all do it, is their businesses are taking a lesser cut and relying on people not sharing accounts. Like, let's face it, Netflix just did all that whole culling of people who were sharing accounts in the hope that they will funnel more people towards a family account, pay a higher fee, but more users can use on the platform. Unfortunately, the general public don't think that way. They just see it as like, so it's interesting thing.
The difference there, though, with Netflix is they're taking away something that they literally used to promote. They used to they used to actually almost promote account sharing, and then they're taking that away to bring in a paid way to do it. This feels like Microsoft is building on top of what they had initially, and they've trialed it, and I'm guessing that, because it is a guess at this point, that it's not, in its current guise, it's not 100% what Microsoft were after. But if they take the data, retool it a bit, this is why I think it might come back at a higher price point.
Yeah. I mean, they've just had a price rise, so that would be befitting of it.
I think it just comes back when Game Pass is stronger, which in theory should be happening in a big way in a couple of years, right?
Starfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah. But yeah, a few more stories to talk about. Right, this is written in via... I think we'll round out on this question, actually. So, Hjorvar from our Discord wrote in to ask us... Microsoft just hired Helix Plays Games to organise its 2024 directs and showcases. How would you do it? How many? What focus? And what format?
Well, this is news to me. I don't recall being brought on by
Hypothetical.
Microsoft.
It's hypothetical.
Right, okay. How would we do the format of the shows? I think just keep doing what they're doing. I thought the last showcase was fantastic. I think the Starfield Direct was the best insight into an unknown IP in a brand new game I've ever seen. I went from being interested remotely in Starfield to being completely sold on it across that 40-minute window. With them having so many studios, I guess it's just more of a delicate balancing act. I think they still need to learn from the mistakes of like just showing CGI stuff. I'm fed up with just watching like cinematics. I think the Hellblade one in particular, this past year was really tough because it was just 4 minutes of CGI nothingness.
The initial reveal of a game, I don't mind being CGI, but after that I want to see game.
Mm-hmm. Especially something that should be so recent. But yeah, just keep doing what they're doing. Like keep that healthy rotation in. Don't showcase stuff that's maybe so far out it's going to be left.
Yeah.
Making people want more and more. Maybe spend... I mean, you might even be able to split it. They've got that many like live service games now in terms of like Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Sea of Thieves. Like, you could even do a different presentation just for updates alone on your games as a service titles. But they need to be like distinguished and separated enough that it doesn't get bogged down and get in the way of other titles. Like, don't show me an Indiana Jones trailer and then waste 20 minutes of my life telling me about a new character coming to Overwatch, because they're different audiences, I feel.
Yeah. I think this is the key here. They have to, like, I don't know how they do this in practicality terms, but I feel like their studio kind of library now is so vast. They need to figure out a way to kind of almost like segment the different types of players they all appeal to now. Because I generally don't care about any game that takes up with 40 hours to kind of complete the main content on now. Like, I just don't have the time for that, and I don't have time for kind of continuous games or whatever. So I feel like they need to kind of like narrow down the focus on a few different like gaming personas, like the kind of busy professionals, busy dads, the time suck gamers who are still out there, and try to kind of like create different shows for those types of people. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, this is where I'm hoping the developer directs kind of take more prominence. Like the Starfield one, like I said, was great. So like now you've got all these IP. Just do a Sea of Thieves developer direct. Do a World of Warcraft developer direct, or whatever it needs to be, an Overwatch one, a Diablo one. And just for a condensed 30 to 40 minutes, get the devs in, get some streamers in or some players who are like you said, Rob, bought into the brand. They live and breathe it. Mm-hmm. Relate to your own audience specific to that. Because the great thing with the world of like kind of online presence and live streams now is you're not beholden to a stage presentation. You can just reach these people at the drop of a hat by putting a link out on social media.
And they don't need to be big things. They don't need like a high production value. Like, if anything, more intimate kind of DIY approach probably works better for those niche audiences.
I think for me, I'd like to see them maybe somewhere between like November to January, just do like one big direct and go, this is what you can look forward to in the next 12 months. And only stuff for the next 12 months. And then after that, you just do other smaller stuff like developer directs or smaller multi-title directs as and when it feels like it's required. So if you've got a big game like a Starfield coming, you do maybe a big developer direct on the run up to that. And you can just, if you have that one big one once a year that everyone goes, okay, I'm going to watch this and then I know what to expect for the next 12 months. Then you can just move things around as you require it. What makes sense for what game. And yeah,
absolutely.
Like, things like Sea of Thieves. That's something that you can go, right. We're doing Sea of Thieves update. We're going to. It's going to be 15 minutes. It's a 15-minute YouTube video. Mm-hmm. The developer's going to talk about the last year and talk about the current season pass. There, we're in and out. We're done.
Well, love it.
But I think that's all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications turned on so you're kept in the loop of all of great content. if you want to join the conversation even further, we have a Discord server. The link is in the description below. And this last week, it's been very active regarding the FTC stuff. A lot of ideas going out there about could the UK even lose Xbox Cloud Gaming. But that's all we have time for you. My name's been Richie.
I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
GG, everyone. Goodbye.